moment I record a video early in the morning, it adds too much of bass. I sound like Samuel Jackson. Okay, here's a quick question for you. Let me know in the comment section. Have you ever heard that nobody is giving jobs to fresher in the DevOps industry? If that is true, how come anybody is ever cracking a job in the DevOps industry? And here's the fact on top of this. Nobody likes to give a job to fresher, even for web development, mobile development, or anything else, as a matter of fact. I'll come back onto this one and we'll talk in depth of this later on in this video. First, let's go ahead and get started with the roadmap to become a DevOps engineer. Hey there everyone, Atesh here, back again with another video, and in this video I'll give you a precise roadmap to become a DevOps engineer, so that if you're learning on your own or maybe following some other resources as well, you can actually find out that what I need to learn and in what order I need to learn. It's not a vague guide which includes everything that is possibly there in the DevOps, but a precise roadmap that can give you on some path. I am very much sure that you have heard about the term DevOps and you are pretty much interested in that, and you have heard things like DevOps is a mindset, DevOps is more like a cultural thing in your company. I agree to some extent, but it's not about the cultural activities that somebody is hiring you for the DevOps. Yes, it's great to sound, but the whole idea and a shortcut hacky definition of DevOps is people write code on the local host. It's the DevOps engineer's responsibility to move that code into the production and make sure it is always available to the client. That is the gist of it, and that's what the DevOps engineer do in the day-to-day life. Yes, it includes a lot of things about maintenance, updates, continuous integration, and a lot of things, but that's the whole idea. The journey is from the local host to the production environment. Now, the first obvious question is, what should I know already in advance to become a DevOps engineer? Do I need to learn a ton of programming? The good thing, and a lot of people love that, is that DevOps doesn't require you to have too much understanding of programming. You should definitely be able to read the code and get an overview. What does this code look like and what it's going to do, what I need to install, but you don't need to write business logics. That's the job of developers, not the DevOps. For a DevOps engineer, any application that is a basic to-do, which is adding a to-dos and adding them into the database, maybe Postgres, MySQL, or MongoDB, is exactly same as some complex application which is processing too much of data and then putting it into the database. Yeah, surely there could be difference in how the servers are, what the configuration is, but for us, it's DevOps engineer, it's exactly the same application. We need to move it onto the server, spin up a few machines, and put up a database behind it. Surely, if you have programming experience, you are going to thrive a lot in the world of DevOps because you understand the code a lot. But it's not really compulsory, and you can totally not focus on the programming world. Surely, you cannot totally ignore it, but you can move your focus a lot more on the tools and the skill sets that are required to become DevOps engineer. All right, now that the prerequisites are complete, let's go ahead and move on and understand the journey to become a DevOps engineer. The step one to become a DevOps engineer is to spend a lot of time on Linux, and at least I recommend a dedicated 2 months to be on Linux. No matter what cloud infrastructure you're choosing to move your production code, maybe that's a basic Linode servers, or maybe that's AWS, GCP, Azure. One thing which is common in all the DevOps engineer skill set is Linux. And the more you know about Linux, the better it is. And understand the basic commands of it, how the grep works, and understand the basic networking of it, the disk management, how it works, how the namespaces work in the Linux. Spoiler alert, namespaces are a great concept in Linux and somewhat inspired how the containerization and Docker works. So the whole idea is, the more you know your Linux, the more you're going to be performing better as a DevOps engineer. And I would not hesitate to recommend that if you are really serious becoming a DevOps engineer, don't hesitate to install Linux onto your even main machine. Make sure you do take the backup. You will be crying a lot, a little bit, probably a lot, and it is not going to be an easy journey. Probably your videos are not going to play, probably your drivers are not going to make sense, but the fast-paced way of learning in Linux is simply to install it on your main machine and cry out every day. The foundation of Linux is just Linux. It doesn't really matter too much if you are a fanboy of Ubuntu or maybe CentOS, maybe Pop! OS, whatever suits you. Just go ahead and get friendly with the Linux environment. Once you feel absolutely comfortable with Linux, then go ahead and move on with the Git. Now, it doesn't really matter if it is a GitLab or GitHub. The Git concepts are really important. You'll be dealing with them quite a lot. So having a comfortable life with a Git is going to make your life a lot easier. So spend some time on Git after that. Once you're done with that, I recommend you to spend some time or probably 2 days with the YAML. Yes, 2 days are more than enough to learn and understand YAML. YAML is more of like an instructional set language. It doesn't include any programming. It's just an instruction that eventually you'll be using as a DevOps engineer. These instructions are given to the computers that, hey, I need an infrastructure maybe which has this much of RAM and this much of machines, and I want to set up a database. All this you can write in instruction. We'll talk about that later on, but YAML is one of the language which I highly recommend that you master early on in your DevOps journey. All right, you have done this much. Great start as a DevOps engineer. Now, the life of a DevOps engineer revolves around a lot of code. Yes, there are dedicated cloud engineers and the DevOps, and yes, people do consider them as separate one, but the chances are high that you need to have this knowledge as well. Now, pick up your favorite cloud. For me, it's going to be AWS, but it's equally same for Azure and GCP as well. AWS offer a lot more services and is a lot more in demand, and a lot of startups use them, but the demand for AWS and Azure are kind of growing at the same time. And the most important part is the machines, the servers that you're spinning up are gonna cost almost equally same on AWS and Azure. Yes, I know there is a difference, but the point of saying that is you'll be spinning some servers. It doesn't really matter. You're borrowing these machines from Jeff Bezos or maybe Sundar Pichai. You need to borrow them with someone. The more you're comfortable with the cloud environment, the more you're making your life easier. Now, I personally prefer AWS on that because you can actually easily complete a few certification on AWS as well during this journey, and that will surely add an added advantage into your resume as well as in your interview as well. It gives a confidence to the person who is hiring that this guy knows his stuff. He has also proven that via some certification in case you want to do that. Otherwise, having the knowledge, in-depth knowledge of the cloud and ins and out, how that works is really essential. And one thing I would like to add here is that it's not about working in a controlled environment. The true knowledge of cloud comes up when you actually jump into the main cloud. Yes, I'm pretty sure a lot of you might be afraid of spinning up the servers, maybe ramping up the bill. That's okay. AWS is really friendly, and even if you shoot up an email that, hey, I was just learning, probably I accidentally shot up the email and the bill, you can actually go ahead and reduce them down. But the idea is play in the real waters and learn there. So don't be hesitant too much with the AWS. If you're following a proper guide, if you're having a good mentor who is teaching you well, I'm sure that you'll be comfortable in not spinning up the bill too much. Listen closely and you won't be hesitant there. But again, here's my personal advice. Learn AWS in the real environment. Will help you a lot. Let's just say you have picked up AWS and now you're quite comfortable with spinning up machines and even horizontal scaling, vertical scaling. You know about what kind of storage is given to you. You're pretty much comfortable with AWS. What next? Then comes up two most important technologies which are used these days quite a lot: the Docker and the Kubernetes. Docker is a way how you containerize your application and put that onto the servers. And in order to make sure that these servers and these containers basically are always up and running, if some container goes bad and goes down, there is something which is monitoring them and making sure that these containers are available all the time. The load on one machine is not too much. You can kind of distribute your load with different containers on different machines. That is where your Kubernetes comes into the picture. Yes, I agree. The name Kubernetes sounds daunting, but it makes you cloud independent. You can spin up the same servers and same configuration, same containers in AWS and GCP, and you can move on freely. And that is why people love Kubernetes so much. All right, you have done so much. That means you are already 60 to 70% into the DevOps journey. And probably you are also ready to apply for a lot of companies. And yes, it doesn't make you a full grade pro DevOps engineer, but I think you have gone a great start. So only this much of the topic will make you a really good DevOps engineer. But obviously, you are into the roadmap, you want to take one step further. Now comes the journey of learning about the tools and the Terraform. The tools like Ansible, something like GitHub Actions, Argo CD, or maybe Circle CI, these tools are not going to take too much of the time because you have spent good amount of time in working up of your foundation. All of these, probably each one is going to take a week or probably 15 days to get started, not to master it, but to have enough knowledge that you can present yourself that I know some stuff about it. After doing this much, I would personally recommend you to spend a lot of time with infrastructure as a code. And there are a lot of tools for it, something like Terraform, maybe Pulumi, Yes, there are more coming out every single day, but once you understand the concept of how to write configuration in a YAML file and then make it up and running, and you can spin up an entire infrastructure for a company with just some line of code, not just basically code, instructional code, yes, YAML files, then you will understand the true power of what infrastructure as a code is. One personal advice I would like to give you at this point: if you have gone through with all those tools that I have mentioned right now, the tool list never ends. There could be Prometheus, there could be Grafana, and there could be more monitoring tool that will help a DevOps engineer to walk through in the daily life. But don't fall into the tool hell. Yes, just like we have a tutorial hell, we also have a tool hell in the DevOps world. Learning unlimited tools is not going to make you a better DevOps engineer. The better DevOps engineer you are going to become when you're going to actually understand that what is the daily working of the DevOps engineer, and can I simulate that? Can I go ahead and just make or take a dummy application and can make it scalable onto the cloud? How can I monitor that? Can I containerize that? That is going to make you a better DevOps engineer than instead of just falling into the tools hell. Remember, the best DevOps engineer is somebody who is not being noticed in the company. If you are getting noticed every week in the company, that means something is going down. DevOps is kind of a role where nobody asks you where you are even if everything is running fine in the company. So make sure you become that kind of DevOps engineer. After this comes up to the very first point. Who is going to hire fresher in the DevOps industry? I agree that the jobs for the freshers in DevOps industry are a little bit scarce, and it's not like too much. There are still enough of plethora of jobs for junior DevOps engineer. The idea behind making yourself skilled and making yourself enough friendly with the project is to work. And just again, as I say, a lot of people comes from a very containerized environment. They haven't learned or even logged into AWS environment. These kinds of people are considered as fresher. Just like in the web development, somebody comes up that, hey, I have created my e-commerce application and I have pushed this app and my apps are there in the Android store. He's not fresher. Obviously, he has not worked in the company, but he's not fresher. He knows what he's doing. Similarly, in the DevOps world, you can put some of the code on your GitHub and can say that, hey, this is the code that I have been using, and this is the code that I've been creating in the YAML file to do this, to do XYZ. I'll definitely, if you request enough in the comment section, I'll come up with some of the use cases and I can give you some of the examples that, hey, these are the things that you can do in your DevOps journey and can present them to your interviewer that, hey, these are the work that I have done. This is known as taking experience on your own. And yes, there are many ways how you can do it. If enough people request in the comment section, I'll give you a list of 4 to 5 such of self-experience that you can take as a DevOps engineer. This guide was designed so that you don't get bogged down and you don't get confused as a DevOps engineer. You get a clear, precise path of how to become a DevOps engineer and what all the tool set and skill sets that you need to learn. I hope you have enjoyed that. In case you have enjoyed that, check out the links in the comment section, first pinned comment of course, and make sure you comment down that how do you like the video. If you like more such videos which are not just the superficial videos, the in-depth guide of how we use it every single day, how we teach stuff and how do we write code and DevOps stuff, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I would be really happy with that. In case not, that's also it's fine, then you can hang around on the channel anyways. If you have any doubt at all, go ahead and reach me out on my Instagram. I'm super active there, or put a question on my LinkedIn inbox. I would be happy to answer any of the question that you have. That's it for this video. Hit that subscribe and let's catch up in the next video.